Hello, welcome to my channel. The name is Stuart, Unrepentant Atheist, and today I'm going to be reviewing another debate, or conversation rather, between Alex O'Connor and Justin Brierley. Now, I believe that Justin Brierley has got his own channel. I've seen him moderating on one or two debates on his own Christian channel. He typically will invite a Christian apologist and an atheist skeptic on to do battle, as it were. So I've noticed he's quite a reasonable moderator, but I did not realize that the extent to how he's gone into apologetics until I watched this video. So the title of the video is "Why Be a Christian?" I found it quite disappointing that they didn't. Justin didn't really answer that. Well, for me, he didn't really answer it because the topics they really covered could have applied to theism. They don't need to be specifically applied to Christianity, which I found very disappointing, because I thought that, or I hoped at least, that Alex could say, well, let's say for the sake of argument that God exists and that the God is a Christian God. Why be this Christian? What is the benefit, and how do you rationalize it all? Or even, what led you from theism to Christianity? I would have found all those things interesting, but unfortunately the conversation degenerated, in my view, into more presup nonsense. It's becoming a disease, this presuppositionalism. I think ever since Darth Dawkins started using it to sledgehammer atheists into submission on Talk Heathen and various other shows, we've probably seen other Christians who are higher up intellectually realizing actually that this presupposition has actually got a lot going for it. But instead of Darth Dawkins, he's quite, if I can say, he's quite kind of primitive with his presuppositionalism, very circular. He makes a lot of claims, and he doesn't really, in my view, construct a proper argument. But I've noticed that quite a few, I did a review a few days ago on Matt Dillahunty and a philosopher on the transcendental argument, and again it's more presup stuff, and that was at a much higher level, of course, than anything that Darth Dawkins can do. And now we've got this conversation, and they spent half of it on free will. I did not expect that free will would lead to presuppositionalism. It actually took me by surprise. But it's always worth listening to these positions and trying to deal with them, because they do have to be dealt with. Although I must say that I've said this before in a previous video, and many of you have said it too, that no matter how strong these arguments may be, it wouldn't be enough to convince me that there is a God. I would only think that there is a way of defeating this argument, but we haven't got it at the moment. It would not lead me to a belief in God. I would almost say that it's like a kind of sophistry, which in a way it sort of is, because what they seem to be doing is taking logic and reason to themselves and saying that you have to have our worldview, otherwise logic and reason don't work. And with this free will thing, what Justin is saying is that in a deterministic universe, which is one that I think Alex believes in, or argued for, or at least in 2019 when this conversation took place, he was saying that he felt that we lived in a deterministic universe. So in other words, if you went back and all the atoms and everything was in exactly the same position, that everything would have played out the same, that there would have been nothing different happening. Now this led to Justin saying, in that case, everything's predetermined. What do you think of that? Alex didn't really challenge that. I wonder whether does that mean that everything's predetermined? If we live in a deterministic universe, in what sense is it predetermined? Simply because if we played it back and played it through again, everything would be the same? Because I always thought that with the God hypothesis, perfect God has got perfect knowledge. He also knows what's going to happen in the future. He knows how everything's going to play out. And I wonder how that impacts on free will. It doesn't really seem to be a problem for Justin. He's saying that there is free will, and there's free will essentially because there's a soul. And whereas all the atoms, all the matter may kind of be deterministic, that him having a soul enables him to make real free choices within free will worldview. And in terms of why Justin is claiming that you can't have any confidence in reason unless you live in a free will universe, unless you've got free will, is because if everything is predetermined, then you're not making real free choices. I don't know if you kind of get where he's coming from. So he's saying that he can make, because he's got free will, he can make these free choices, and it's his soul effectively, like the ghost in the machine, which is making these free choices. And us atheists who don't believe in the soul, and for those of us who accept deterministic worldview, we haven't got the same free choices, therefore we're irrational and we can't have any confidence in our reason. Now what Alex said about this was that that the whole process of becoming convinced by something is not a choice. It's not a free choice. So you can't choose. Yeah, it comes back to this thing: you can't choose what you believe. You can't choose what you become convinced of. I thought this was pretty good what he said there. So the free will thing doesn't really come into it because of the way that all your atoms are lined up in your body and in your brain, and the way that your brain works. Believing something is not a matter of choice. You either are convinced by the evidence which you assemble or is put before you, or you're not, and it's not a choice. But Justin was saying, well, he said that you would be making free choices when you're assembling the evidence. You would be making free choices about which evidence to assemble before the final point where you are convinced. So free choice still comes into it. Obviously this is at a much higher level than Darth Dawkins, but to me it still sounds a little bit like sophistry. I don't like using the term word salad, because you could turn around and say, well, that's just because you don't understand the argument. But I mean, what he's basically saying, I mean, I've seen it now from William Lane Craig, I've seen it from many apologists, and they all now seem to be coming back to this, I don't know, this sort of idea, or this claim that there has to be this grand guarantee provided by God, this foundationalism, if you like, for everything that is in existence, including human reason and logic, insofar as it exists in an abstract way, and that it won't be reliable. You can't have any confidence in it unless you accept that there is a God behind it all, guaranteeing it. So it still sounds to me like the same old Darth Dawkins precept nonsense, kind of dressed up in fancier language and at a higher level of argument. I still don't think that he's demonstrated really what he's claiming there, particularly about particularly claiming that he's using free will to become convinced by the evidence, which leads him to accept a proposition, either a proposition is true or not true. I'm not really convinced. I think that he's making that claim there, but I'm not convinced by his own reasoning in that. It looks to me like he's dancing around. Every time Alex puts a stick in his wheels, and to give him credit, he's coming up with a new trump card to ruin what Alex is saying. I apologize for the way that I'm putting all this. You appreciate that it's quite complicated, and I don't, I'm not scripted, etc. And so let me just look at my notes. Have I covered everything? Yeah, I think I've covered the essential parts of it. Yeah. Again, I don't think I mean, no matter how strong the argument is, and even if we can't think of a defeater for it, it's still not going to convince me that my reason is not reliable, or at least it's not going to convince me that I can't be confident about reason. And I also don't think that my reason is reliable because there's a God. I do think that one can be reasonably confident about one's reason in the absence of a God. But that's what this whole conversation was about, and I got a bit frustrated with it. I was looking through the comments, and I can see why. I mean, a lot of Christians are now coming to Alex's channel, which I suppose is a good thing, because obviously at least they're exposed to the atheist point of view, and obviously he is very good with what he does. But I noticed far more Christians on Alex's channel than any other atheist channel I've ever seen. I don't know what to conclude about that, only that they like it that he's very polite. They would probably say that he's not as forceful and dogmatic in a way as Matt is. I must go to Matt's channel and see if he has any new thoughts on free will, and whether he sees free will or lack of free will as an impediment to human reason, having confidence in human reason. That would be interesting. I'd like to know what he's got to say about it. So, but more importantly, what have you got to say about it? I'm sorry, I've come back to presuppositionalism again, and it disappoints me that Christian apologists are now going down this road. I think they see it as a powerful tool to win arguments against atheists. But to me, at the end, it still looks like a circular argument, no matter how cleverly he's going to dress it up. That's all for now, guys. I'm a bit exhausted by all that. I've watched that video. It kind of exhausted me. Let me know what your thoughts are. Bye for now.